Did you see that post?
People are talking.
Here's what's trending on the Rickey Smiley Morning Show.
January is Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know if y'all knew that. January is Mental Health Awareness Month. Research continues to show that your mental health significantly impacts your physical health, and also how individuals with positive mental health can actually reduce the risk of heart attack and other serious conditions. This past year, my family and I incorporated personal and family therapy to help us recognize the 1-year anniversary of the loss of my son, Brandon. And I know that there are many others out there who are dealing with their new normal after dealing with a loss. Joining us this morning is Dr. Aldewan Tart. Dr. Tart, good morning, man. Happy to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it.
Man, always good having you. First, this morning, for those who may be dealing with grief and anxiety, what are some of the ways, that you would suggest that families cope with the loss of losing a loved one?
I mean, well, first, Ricky, I want people to understand that how devastating this is. A study came out that said that 96,000 people who lost a spouse, the surviving spouse, passed the following week. That's 96,000. And heart attack rates doubled.
Wait, say that one more time. That's real interesting, Dr. Tart.
All right. So when we start talking about grief, say you lost a spouse, right? And they did a study of 96,000 people. They found that the surviving spouse's death rate doubled the first week following the loss.
Wow.
All right. And when we look at heart attack rates, they double for men and they triple for women right after the loss of a loved one.
Wow.
So when we start talking about grief, especially us as a people, Ricky, a lot of times we just kind of suck it up and try to move through it. We don't really know what to do. And that's the wrong thing, because a lot of people just have unresolved grief, and there's something called prolonged grief disorder, where there are a lot of people that just stay stuck in the grief and they can't move through it. And that's the worst kind of pain. And that's what I want to prevent and help this morning.
Now, Dr. Tart, I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of the new normal. I remember Rickey talking about, how he would wake up and feel like he was on another planet, like it just felt really different.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how detrimental suppressing our feelings can be, and what ways it can manifest into physical health issues?
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is the first phase of grief and loss, which is shock and denial. I mean, that's just trying to avoid the pain. I don't even want to think this happened, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times people wake up and they'll go buy a room, they'll make a phone call and realize they're not here anymore, right? That's how big shock and denial is, because we don't want to accept it because it's awful. So what happens is when we suppress it, it goes into, it affects our sleep. It affects our minds, our stomach, our well-being. Some people can't even shower months after, go back to work, right? And so when we suppress it, those emotions in which we honor that person's loss, and that means we honor it with pain, we honor it with crying. When we cry, it actually releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone that makes us feel better. But when we don't do that, we busy ourselves, or we just work and put our heads down and not think about it. That's how we make our grief worse, and we actually complicate it.
Yeah, Dr. Tart, it's crazy. I got up yesterday morning, and I got up this morning just celebrating. You confirmed everything I said in our spiritual inspiration moment this morning. I cry it out. I've been getting therapy like no other, and I sit in my feelings, and when I want to cry, I know how to go in the closet, and I just cry it out, and I actually feel better when I cry.
Yeah.
And the anxiety, Dr. Tart, let me tell you, New Year's Eve, the New Year's Eve countdown, and then they start showing all the people that died in 2023, and I got all the TVs on. Do you understand, Brett, that my anxiety was so bad, I felt like my son was going to die again? Do you understand that? Not my son that's living, my son that has already passed away. I felt like it was building up to him passing away. again, and I'm walking around the house by myself, Christmas lights off because it's New Year's Eve, and it just felt cold and dark and sad, and my anxiety like something was about to happen. And that's probably one of my lowest points, Dr. Tartt. Explain the anxiety.
Well, first of all, Ricky, I mean, people say they can imagine what you're going through, but they don't. No one knows. You have to go through it personally, and then you have to lose a child. So my compassion and my heart goes out to you. And what you're talking about is unfortunately living with the reminders, right, which is part of the grief process, is that you can be in a better place, not a great place, but then something will trigger you, like New Year's Eve was triggering. A phone call can be triggering. A picture can be triggering. A birthday can be triggering. And so part of why we all should go to counseling, everyone, after the loss, is to deal with those reminders that come up so that you can talk about them and identify triggers and then create strategies to cope.
Yeah. I think it's so important, Ricky, and I admire your courage to just speak about how you've been going to therapy, how you've been crying it out, because a lot of times, there's this masculinity, like for men to, be hard and to not express their emotions. And as a woman, I always try to be mindful, especially as a wife, to support my husband and make him feel safe to express himself in that way. What are things that we can do as women in the lives of men who are struggling with grief?
Honestly, get them to talk about how they feel, right? What we know is that the critical piece to helping someone grieve is how they narrate the end of that person's life, like how they talk about it. Like the more you talk about it, even though it sounds like the opposite thing to do, the actual better you feel because you get further and further away from it, right? When you don't talk about it, that's how it stays with the same intensity 4 or 5 years afterwards. So actually, if you're blessed enough to have a wife or have someone whom you trust, and that's why therapy is so important, to actually talk about how it feels over and over again, even though most people want to get away from it, that actually helps you to feel better because you are you're weakening the power it has over you and getting the distance you need to grieve without totally shutting down, if that makes sense.
Wow. Dr. Tartt, it's a lot of people out there going through. That's why I decided this January 29th to just try to put things into perspective and use this opportunity to help other people that's grieving, because it's bigger than me and it's not about me. A lot of people, I try to look at different perspectives, Dr. Tartt, and try to use this platform to help others heal, because so many people have suffered and kids have gotten killed and have to deal with not only their kids getting killed, they got to go to court to face their child's murderer and all this, stuff like that. And that's why I try to be mindful and thoughtful. And something said, hey, you're not going to lay in the bed and think about this stuff. We're going to get up and we're going to make sure that the death of your son is not in vain. We're going to try to use this opportunity to bless others. Dr. Tartt, let everybody know how you can be reached if people need additional help or resources, or how can they contact?
All right. Well, Rick, I appreciate the platform and being there for you, man, and for your audience. If you've lost a child specifically, I want y'all to go to CompassionateFriends.org. CompassionateFriends.org. It is only for parents who have lost a child. That type of hurt is different from every other type. For everyone else, they can go to GrieveShare.org, GrieveShare.org. And I've created a course for people to get over prolonged grief disorder. And you can just text me to 770-637-5710. 770-637-5710, so that you can learn how to get over grief yourself, or how, for most people, how to support a loved one.
Dr. Tartt, I really appreciate you, man. You don't understand. We helping a lot of people today. And I just thank God for you. I thank God for my therapist. I thank God for Spirit, the therapist that has helped my family. She works out of Atlanta. She was on our reality show. She actually was my son's therapist. And I just really we just been doing a lot of therapy. And I want everybody to understand, you just can't pray and pray and pray. The brain is a muscle, and it have to be healed just like your ankle, your stomach, your knees. You go to the doctor for everything except for your brain. And God created therapists. God created Dr. Tart. God created all of the therapists that's out there to help you figure this out and grieve properly and put things in a proper perspective so you could continue to live. Dr. Tart, thank you so much, man. I really love you and appreciate you, and thank you for being who you are, and counselors, Yanetta Spring, all of the therapists that's out there, Crystal Counseling in Birmingham. Thank all of y'all so much for what you do for helping people like myself.
Hey, Ricky, I'm glad I could be here for you, man, and God bless you.
More Rickey Smiley Morning Show coming up.